Beach and Dunes Habitat. Hello everyone, I'm Cassidy. I am introducing you to the beach and dune ecosystem. As residents of Galveston County, we are familiar with the beach on a surface level, but let's dive deep. A beach is a narrow strip of land separating a body of water from inland areas. Beaches, by definition, can include areas surrounding lakes or on a river's edge. The beaches that are in our ecosystem are made from sand and are at the edge of the Gulf of Mexico. These beaches stretch from the water's edge to the sand dunes that lead into the dune swale complex. The beach is made up of the foreshore, wet beach in the tide line, and the backshore, dry beach only inundated by storms and spring tides. These beaches consist of fine sediments and were formed by deposits from the Mississippi River and other smaller rivers approximately 5,000 years ago. These fine sediments are the cause of the cloudy appearance of the Gulf waters. The fine sediment is easily churned up by wind and waves and is suspended in the water column. This sand in the water and on the beach makes up the dunes seen on Bolivar Peninsula. Sand dunes are naturally formed by wind and wave-driven sand. During the calm season, waves along the Texas coast are small, allowing sand to be deposited from offshore sandbars to beaches. These sandbars are usually 50 to 100 feet from the shoreline. As the sand is blown landward, it gets trapped in the vegetation on the foredune. This slow sand building process is called accretion. During a storm or during active seasons, high energy waves wash against the foredune, disrupting vegetation and eroding the dune face. The sand is deposited back to the offshore sandbars where it originated. This natural cycle is what slowly builds the dunes and damages them. However, the natural vegetation of sand dunes helps build them up to protect beaches, other habitats, and coastal cities. Sand dunes contain a wide diversity of native vegetation, each with a specific function that keeps the dune stable and healthy. Native vegetation is adapted to the local weather patterns, soil conditions, and light requirements. These plants provide wildlife with food and shelter. Many plant species native to our dunes have specially adapted root systems which hold sand in place. Dune plants along the Texas coast can grow either as a vine or upright. Each growth type has a unique function to the stabilization of the sand dune. The basic plant anatomy includes the above ground parts, the roots and rhizomes, and the above ground parts, stems, leaves, and nodes. The below ground structures are responsible for stabilization, nutrient uptake, and propagation, while the above ground parts are responsible for photosynthesis and stabilization. Roots spread radially underground and the primary plant shoot or stem to stabilize the plant. This arrangement allows the plant to absorb nutrients from the surrounding soil. Rhizomes are underground stems that grow horizontally under the soil and provide an alternative method for the plant to reproduce. Rhizomes send out vertical shoots, creating daughter plants that are genetically identical to the parent plant. Above ground, stems stabilize the plant and contain nodes. Nodes are evenly placed along the stem and are the site where new stems grow. Leaves store nutrients and primarily photosynthesize for plant food production. Some dune plants, particularly vines, will grow roots from the node if it's exposed to soil and moisture. Gulf Coast cordgrass, Spartina patens. Cordgrass is commonly found on the foredune ridges and back dunes. This species grows well in the trough areas between the foredunes and succeeding dunes. Unlike most dune vegetation, Spartina patens grows well in saturated soils and inundated areas. It spreads using rhizomes, which form dense mats beneath the surface, which aid in preventing erosion. Sea oats, Uniola paniculata. This is a native species that propagates through rhizomes and seed dispersal. This particular species is very important to the production of foredunes since it has a very extensive underground root system. Sea oats thrive in loose, sandy soil and tend to be very productive on the top of sand mounds or the higher parts of the sand dune ridges. They also have very large flowering plumes that are attractive to both people and wildlife. Railroad vine, Ipomea pescapri. This species is commonly found at the base of foredunes, dune swales, high beaches, and coastal wetlands. It prefers more moisture than most dune plants. This species roots at the nodes, forming thick mats that can stretch up to 75 feet. The flowers, which open in the early morning and often close shortly after noon, are pink or lavender. The trumpet-shaped blooms are very attractive to bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. The seed pods produce regular amounts of seed stock, which feed local birds. This plant can be cultivated by seed collection and cuttings, as new plant growth can easily develop from the nodes. Benefits of sand dunes. Sand dunes are a crucial part of the beach habitat. As a trap for sand caught in the wind, they prevent erosion of the beaches. They keep the sand at the beach instead of blowing into cities and covering coastal prairies. This is especially true on barrier islands and peninsulas where the habitats are so close together. When there are storms in the Gulf of Mexico, sand dunes protect cities and natural habitats from rising storm surge. Of course, dunes also provide habitat and food for many beach-dwelling animals. Severe erosion from wind, waves, and stormwater runoff is a challenge that many barrier islands and peninsulas face. Replenishing beaches with sand is expensive and time-consuming, so keeping sand at the beach with established sand dunes is important for humans and native habitats. In its early days, Galveston Island was protected from storm surge in the Gulf of Mexico by the sand dunes. However, the rapid development of the city in the late 19th century, especially as a tourist hotspot, led to the removal of the sand dunes along the beachfront for fill and to permit easy beach access. Without sand dunes, Galveston was unprotected from hurricanes. On September 8, 1900, a devastating hurricane hit Galveston and the surrounding areas. It caused millions of dollars worth of damage and about 6,000 lives were lost. It was a tragedy. The city of Galveston decided to build a barrier to the Gulf Coast called the seawall. The Galveston seawall successfully protects the city from most storm surges. Unfortunately, because it doesn't have natural vegetation to trap sand like dunes, sand blows away or is washed out to sea. The seawall protects from some flooding, but cannot compare to the protection from erosion that sand dunes provide. Sargassum is an infamous seaweed found along the Texas coast. It gives the beaches a poor reputation for being dirty, but this algae is crucial habitat for many species. The Sargassum species found in our area are pelagic brown algae, more commonly referred to as seaweed or gulfweed. While many Sargassum species are benthic, The species we find in the Gulf of Mexico are free-floating and never attached to the ocean floor. They have tiny air bladders that allow them to float near the surface and photosynthesize. Sargassum grows in the Atlantic Ocean in the Sargasso Sea. The algae consolidates in large floating mats and can span over 100 meters. Ocean currents and winds carry these mats to coastlines along the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico and lands on the beach during high tide. The floating mats are essential habitat for many species of fish, shrimp, crabs, other invertebrates, and microorganisms. 10 species are actually endemic to the floating mats and found nowhere else in the world. Juvenile sea turtles even use the floating algae mats for shelter. Sargassum collected on the beach shouldn't be removed. It helps trap blowing sand and prevents beach erosion. It can help form sand dunes and reinforce the coast. Let's talk about some common organisms found in the beach and dune habitat. Forsters Turn is a medium-sized tern with a slender body, deeply forked long tail, and relatively long legs. In its non-breeding plumage, the crown is white and a black comma-shaped patch covers the eye and ear cover. The wings are gray, with the primaries being dark silver gray, while the underside is white. The bill is black and the legs are a dull brownish red. When breeding, an intense black cap extending down the neck appears. The wings and the back are pale gray, while the underside is bright white. It has a black-tipped orange bill and bright orange legs. Forsters terns commonly winter on the Bolivar Peninsula and surrounding area, though they can be found year-round. The royal tern is large and has an orange-red bill, pale gray upper parts, and white underparts. Its legs are black. In winter, the black cap becomes patchy. I like to tell kids royal terns look like older men with receding hairlines. They can be found in our area year-round. There are 3 types of gulls commonly found on the Bolivar Peninsula. The laughing gull is easily spotted by its black head. The summer adult's body is white apart from the dark gray back and wings and black head. They lose the black coloring when it is not breeding season, the winter and fall, and their head is mostly white. Ring-billed gulls usually spend winter on the coast of Texas and other surrounding areas. They breed in the northern United States and Canada. This species is part of the reason people shouldn't call all gulls seagulls, because they can be found near lakes, rivers, and the ocean. They are recognizable by the black ring around their yellow bill. Herring gulls are very common all over the eastern US. They are probably what people picture when they picture a gull. They are gray and white with pink legs, and they are quite large. Piping plovers, snowy plovers, and Wilson's plovers are all small shorebirds with long legs that can be found on the Bolivar Peninsula. They have white bellies and grayish backs. Piping plovers have a black band between their eyes and can be found here only during non-breeding season. Wilson's plovers can be found here year-round. Their backs are grayish-brown, and they have a thick band around their neck. The snowy plover is recognizable by the black patch on the side of their neck. They also only live on Bolivar Peninsula during non-breeding season. Longbilled curlews are a large sandpiper that winter on the Texas coast. They have light rusty brown feathers and a long curved bill. They forage in flocks, using their long curved bill to probe into burrows for crabs and shrimp. The black skimmer is the largest of the 3 skimmer species. The basal half of the bill is red, the rest mainly black, and the lower mandible is much elongated. The eye has a dark brown iris and a cat-like vertical pupil, which is unique for a bird. Their legs are red. Adults in breeding plumage have a black crown, nape, and upper body. The forehead and underparts are white. The upper wings are black with white on the rear edge, and the tail and rump are dark gray with white edges. The underwing color varies from white to dusky gray depending on region. Non-breeding adults have paler and browner upper parts and a white nape collar. Skimmers have a light, graceful flight with steady beats of their long wings. They feed usually in large flocks, flying low over the water surface with the lower mandible skimming the water for small fish, insects, crustaceans, and mollusks. They can be found here year-round. The brown pelican is the smallest of the 9 pelican species, but it is often one of the larger seabirds in their range nonetheless. They have a brownish back and wings with a light head and belly. They are recognizable because of their throat pouch. My favorite thing to do is watch pelicans in large flocks for a while, because eventually one will probably yawn and you can see them stretch their pouch. Pelicans, especially brown pelicans, were endangered for decades because the use of the pesticide DDT damaged their eggs. Luckily, after DDT was banned in the 70s, pelicans have made a recovery. There are plenty of seashells to be found on Bolivar Peninsula. Bolivar is known for being a great place for beachcombing. These are some common shells that can be found in the area. Angel wings, scallops, cockles, oysters, and razor clams are all bivalve mollusks that can be found when beachcombing. Bivalve mollusks often live in burrows and are a primary food source for shorebirds. Oysters live together, forming oyster reefs, building shells on top of one another. Oysters are incredibly important to Galveston Bay because they filter feed and purify the water. Lightning whelks are a large marine gastropod, a snail. Lightning whelks actually eat small bivalves, and their shells can be found on many Texas beaches. The lightning whelk is the Texas state shell. These shells are sinistral because the whirl of the gastropod runs clockwise. Most gastropod shells are counterclockwise or right-handed. Because of lightning whelks' left-handedness, they were an important part of Native American culture. A common crustacean found on beaches is the ghost crab. Ghost crabs are also called sand crabs and are named because of their ability to blend in to the sandy beaches and dunes where they live. The ghost crabs also quickly disappear from sight as they are able to move in bursts up to 10 miles an hour. They often make burrows that can be seen on the foredunes. Beaches and dunes are an incredible habitat crucial to Bolivar Peninsula and the surrounding area. They are biodiverse and they protect the shore from erosion.